right, we're back with Wes, and we're going to talk about vibe coding. We've both been vibe coding a lot with fun front-end technologies like tanstack, Start, shadcn, things like that. And I think one of the things that I've really liked is that it's been really fun to get something started with the AI, and you can very quickly get to the point where you have like a fun demo working, even a fully working app. One of the things that I've been kind of like thinking about is what is this actually doing to my like coding skills and what does this mean for our jobs and all this kind of stuff. So we could talk about that. But I think the fun part for me is just you just get something going like really quickly and
Yeah.
it's really fun, right?
Yeah, it is. Like, when you say vibe coding though, what does that look like for you? Or like, how involved are you? Or are you just saying, go build this, and then you come back later and it's done?
Yeah, in this particular app, it's not like I don't really care what happens. It's just for fun. And
Yeah.
so I kind of am like, here's like create a tanstack app, and then here's some routes I want. And then I'm like, okay, now I want to have this modal where you can add something, and like let's use shadcn, and here's an example. And then it'll be like, okay, now let's hook it up to Neon to like store this in Postgres and stuff like that, just one thing at a time. And what I
Yeah.
found is it's actually really good at doing it without much instruction. But I
Hmm.
think it's because it's really simple. It's like early on in the project. But I know like with your experience, I think when you get to more complex things like CDK, or if you have a giant project with where it has to search across many files and know just one little thing and make one small little change to fix a bug, it gets much harder to be productive that way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
but I mean,
agree.
I think for me, just vibe coding with newer technologies that I'm not super familiar with, and then just seeing like, okay, that's how this looks when it's all put together, for me has been really helpful because I don't need to like I already know how to write the TypeScript. I know what a server function is. I know everything that's happening. So I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out on anything by not hand typing the code.
Right.
But I do feel like not doing that over and over every day, like I've been doing for the past 10 or whatever years, is going to have an impact at some point on my, my usefulness as a engineer.
Depending on what you want to do, I guess, though, right? Because, like, do you want to be building modals? Do you want to be like doing all the plumbing of this? And I think that's what the agent's really good at is like, oh, I can take this shadcn component, I can take this server function component, I can take this dialogue and I can do it. Like, I think it depends on how you want to view what your skill sets and what you're really good at and what you want to excel at. And I think some people do just like crunching out the code of like, you know what? I just like writing HTML. I like writing React. I like writing like just code. And so that's maybe some of that. So if what you're doing is just like go build this dialogue, go put this button here, go do that there, like yeah, I can see your atrophy skilling, but like or your skills atrophying some. But if you're more focused on like database schemas, workflows, and defining all those, like your systems minded thinking doesn't atrophy, even if the agent is going and doing those things. And I think there's also like to get it to do well, you don't lose your skills. And we can talk about that too. But I think it depends on how you want to view what you want to be good at and what you're okay letting certain things atrophy to be able to focus on maybe more high level things as well too, is
Right.
a question.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked about this last time a bit. But one of the things that I was thinking is like, does vibe coding or even just letting an LLM write all the code for you, does that make your skills atrophy? I think you have a good point that thinking just like maybe another level up or two is maybe the more important and useful skill. Although I do feel like as an engineer, our job up to this point has been tied to how well we can actually just write the code. And like there's interviews that where you have to do that exact thing. And getting more and more used to an LLM doing that for you it gets to the point where at some point I'm not going to remember how to do any of that. Like I could read code, but maybe not necessarily write code very well.
And that's fair. And I don't disagree with that. And I think maybe you and me have a different perspective too, because we went through so many years of writing the code and focusing on so many small little things like syntax and like how where to put code and how to structure it in a way that maybe we're feeling that atrophy because
Mhm.
of how many years we did that. But somebody else coming up new with AI, they don't feel that, right? They're learning in a totally different way too, because they haven't had to bash their head against the wall because of missing semicolon or figure out like where they're missing an ending parens before we had even prettier and all that stuff that would auto format for us. And like we were sitting there having to read through every single tiny little line and every single like syntactic thing that we had to put in there. And so to us, that was part of coding for so long, but now it's not. And it's become
Yeah.
less with Prettier. But so maybe it's more just generational thing. Is we're the old guys in
Mhm.
engineering now too, that like we feel an atrophying of skills because maybe there is in how we used to code, but for new engineers, they're not going to feel that. This is how they've learned. This is how they're going to code moving forward. So it's a different skill set that they're going to have to adapt and grow with LLMs instead. So I don't know.
But But don't you feel like the reason why, so a better engineer is better at AI coding, and it's because they know exactly what should be done. And so when the LLM does it quickly, they can very quickly approve or spot mistakes, make changes. And someone who doesn't know these things because they haven't had years of manual coding experience will just kind of go with what the LLM outputs, which
Agreed.
may or may not be a problem in the future because the LLMs will get much better, and honestly at some point you may not even have to review it as a human, but at least right now I still think it matters. And
It does.
so yeah, if your manual coding and skills decrease or atrophy or stay the same, then the way you use an LLM to code is also not going to be improving. So I wonder at what point that is going to have much of an effect.
No, I mean, and that's a good point. Right now, it matters, right?
Yeah.
Right now, you need to know how to code to use an LLM well. And like I said, maybe it won't in the future or will adapt to learning differently within the LLM to learn like we learn how to be good engineers through the hard knocks approach of typing everything out by hand. And people won't, they'll have to adapt and learn differently when an LLM spits everything out with you. So how do you validate that the LLM's correct, not opening a huge security hole or anything like that as well, or just
Mhm.
building a quagmire of code for you to deal with later on the
Yeah,
road.
like
But
house of
it,
cards. Yeah.
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like, yeah,
there'll be
more than
something that,
security holes, it's like it's building this house of cards that if you the more and more complex it gets, at some point it's just going to fall down, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. But so what are you going to do with your side project if you're vibe coding pretty good hard at it with like what do you feel like will be your point of needing to dive in and stop vibe coding so much?
I think as the project gets more complex, I'm realizing that there's more subtlety. And then, so one of the things that I posted on today was AI is really good at generating code that's like has no value basically because everything that the LLM can generate on its own is something that's already been done before and it knows really well, which means there's no value in and of itself without adding some type of human creativity on top of that. So it
Hmm.
can do like tanstack start boilerplate applications, it can pull examples, it can write a to-do list application, it can build you whatever like a marketing website, all these things really well and it's really impressive. But then I think those things are going to proliferate, is going to make them even less valuable. And I don't really think they're valuable now, anyways. But what I'm finding as I build this app is I could get to a point really quickly where it was something really cool, but then I realized like nobody's going to pay for this
Hmm.
because it's kind of just like with this thing I'm building is like this personal finance portfolio manager, which is basically just like a replacement for a spreadsheet, and it's really not that valuable. So I
Right,
think you have to have the human that's going to put the creativity on top of it, and then not the LLM is not helpful. It's just by itself. It's just not adding. It doesn't really add any create anything of value by itself. So I still like doing it and I want to publish these things and just because it's so easy to make them and even if it's like a free open source thing that like maybe it's slightly better than a spreadsheet, but it's still better.
Right.
So, and it's fun to build. So
Well, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, and it goes to what we've talked about even outside of these conversations of like building your own personal software is a world that like has been totally opened up, right?
Hmm.
Like that you couldn't do that before without an insane amount of effort to do something that didn't have any monetary value behind it. But now, I mean, yeah, we can spin up applications and products and stuff just for ourselves because there's something that we want and we can do it quickly because it doesn't matter what the code looks like as long as we can get something that helps us. And I've done that at work too. Like I've built these Electron apps just run locally to help me like look at AWS CloudWatch logs and GitHub actions in one screen so I don't have to be jumping around GitHub all the time. But it'd never be able to be monetized or anything. But LLMs have opened that up that I can just let it run on the side while I'm doing regular work and building something that helps my daily work and make it a little bit easier, even in small ways. So I think that's super valuable, right? It gets more people in building products. It gets more people thinking about what they could build. But you're right, there's still a massive gap of startup tutorial, like really advanced Hello Worlds to-do list type junk. Maybe not junk, but starting points and like a real product that you can sell that people really want to use and love. I mean, I'm dealing with that on my side stuff that I am trying to make money from. Like it feels flat, right? And so like, but there is always still a catch for anything side. I'm like, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to really put the energy into it. So I'm just see what the AI can spit out and do. And then I go with it and just looks flat or just looks like there's no creativity. There's no
Yeah.
human aspect to it, right? And I think that's going to still be, I hope that will still be necessary. It's the same thing
Hmm.
of like, we hope agents don't take away art and stuff like that, or
Hmm.
movie making because we want the creativity, we want the soul of it. There's still an aspect of that with the products that we build too.
Yeah, I wonder if I wonder if making something valuable still would be faster doing it all manually or at least close, because I feel like writing the boilerplate code saves time. But if you look at a project that really has value over a long period of time, that part where the just writing the code is such a tiny piece of the whole thing together. I just wonder if it doesn't even really matter in the long term.
I don't know that it doesn't matter. And I mean, this is kind of something I posted on LinkedIn too, of like how I started writing API endpoints. I wrote the first one by hand, and then the next five were all pretty similar, just different business logic, but they were all calling the same services. They're all doing the same stuff. And so I vastly improved the speed at which I was able to build out this new API service because I spent time doing one large chunk of it well and writing it by hand. And then I just switched to an LLM, say, okay, now look at this, follow the same exact convention. We're just going to be doing this instead. And so then it can do that and it can spit out that code a whole lot faster than I can manually type out that code, right? And then I move on to the next one. And I do the same thing with tanstack server functions. Like I go and I write out like three or four server functions. And so they always parse the input. They always have a Zod schema. They always parse the input. They always use Drizzle to create the database or mutate the database. And then they parse the output to get it into the right type, right? And so it has a very convention thing where I can say, okay, now look at this server function. Go build me a server function that goes and gets users. Go build me a server function that updates a user and stuff like that. And it'll do auth and everything because I've created the conventions. And so now I can just go and spit those things out a whole lot faster than I can having to manually go type and put the middleware every single time, go create a Zod schema every single time, go parse it every single time. And so I think they're still super beneficial aspects for building real products that have like real value to them. If again, it goes back to delegate your work, not your thinking, right? So I still put my thinking and my effort in up front to create the patterns that I wanted. And then I gave it to an LLM to go match the patterns, which is what it's really good at, right? Like, and said, okay, now go do this and follow the same patterns that I've already put in place for you. And I can spit out stuff a whole lot faster that
Mhm.
way. Um, so yeah, I don't think it'll be just as easy to go and write everything by hand without an LLM at all. But I think you still have to put in the same amount of effort thinking wise and creativity
Mhm.
wise, even if you're not typing every single line of code by hand like we used to, right?
Yeah, I think the LLMs make it really easy to not think, and so
Yes.
you really have to struggle against the current kind of to make sure that you're thinking and not delegating your thinking to the LLM.
Yeah. Yeah. How would you get around? Like, how do you tell yourself, like, how do you convince yourself not to give up your thinking to an
I
LLM these days?
For me, well, I don't know, but for me, I know that I hit a wall with LLMs where it just can't help anymore.
Hmm.
And I just realized that, okay, I have to, like, now I have to do something, Like
Yeah.
in my day-to-day job, I don't delegate much to an LM at all because it's these large projects and usually you're just doing one little thing. Like, and I still write a lot of code by hand because it's really not that much faster. Um, but in when I'm like vibe coding, what I'm realizing is once the project reaches a certain complexity or you have something built and you're like, okay, this is cool, but like you said, it's kind of flat. Like now it just forces you to be like, now I have to put in some effort of my own.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a point where like maybe you have to deal with the pain of bad LLM code
Yeah.
to then be like, okay, now I kind of know the point of where I can't push it.
Hmm.
Right. Um, and then how do you use it differently? So like with AWS CDK code, agents suck at writing it. They make up all these random stuff. Even asking like ChatGPT just for help of like how would you use CDK to do this? It just makes up a whole lot of stuff, right? And so like the way that I have to switch to using it is not as a code writer, but as like a research assistant and reviewer. And so it does a really good job of reviewing code that I've already written. And then I try to ground it with the actual source code from CDK. So like you could create a tool or whatever that could read the CDK GitHub repo source code, and so you can ask that tool, say, okay, go pull down the source code for these constructs that I'm working with and look at the type signature for it and make sure that I'm using it correctly in that sense, right? Or like, am I missing anything? So sometimes it could be like a higher level construct, an L2 that provides you nice helper methods that you don't know about, and it can find those in those sense. So I'm still writing the CDK by hand or the code by hand, but I'm switching to using an LLM and more of a review mode in that sense too, which I think is very helpful too. Because I mean, I'm not great at AWS and infra stuff. So it's just nice to kind of feel like you have that sanity check of, especially security wise, am I missing something, or like, is there just something I should be thinking about here, or could I restructure this for multi-region stuff? So like, I think it's fantastic for still going down that path, even if it's not used for writing all of your code in that too.
Mhm. Yeah. So I have to say this is the first week that I've ever felt like a little bit worried about my job because of AI. Like I haven't felt that before, and I don't know if it's rational or not, but I think it was when so Atlas came out, the
Mhm.
ChatGPT browser, and I guess I kind of just realized that like all these AI assistants that a lot of people are building, including myself, are just going to be completely pointless because of these assistants that are just going to be built into the browser. And I mean, my prediction is just that the browser-based assistant is going to be so good, and people are going to be used to it. They're going to like using it. They're just going to use that, and so they're not going to click your little pop-up on your website for your AI chat that may or may not work.
Mhm.
And so what I think is going to happen is they're going to probably allow you to expose MCP or A to A or something for for that assistant will basically go to a website and it'll hit an MCP endpoint. It will grab your tools and it'll be able to run your tools and you'll be able to pull in context and give it prompts and stuff. And so that will be the way of making the assistant kind of have your proprietary information, not like sensitive information, but just like
Right.
tools. And here's how to do this, here's how to do that, here's what this website is about, stuff like that.
Yep.
And I just think that's going to kill all AI assistants that are currently being built.
Yeah, I agree. I think unless it's something like super proprietary, like a health AI assistant for like your insurance or I don't just your doctor as a whole. I don't necessarily, I mean, I think those could probably still be beneficial where it has actually access to your health records and it's all super secure. And you could ask an assistant, like, what did my blood test results show? Right. And that could be coming from straight from your doctor and it's secure instead of you having to upload all that to ChatGPT or whatever. I mean, I think there could still be cases for that. But I mean, I think for the generic, like, Shopify assistants or even ours or uh, I don't know, any like marketplace assistant, it's going to move to ChatGPT. And I think that's already happening because ChatGPT and Stripe and Shopify are all moving towards like the agentic commerce protocol too, where like they're trying to push products into ChatGPT so that people can search and buy products directly in there. So it's more a move to push data into ChatGPT instead of having your own siloed assistant in each thing that works differently and stuff like that. They're trying to more have that cohesive schema approach that everybody integrates with ChatGPT. And I mean, I have my concerns with that too, because then who's responsible for gating of like what should be shown or whatever. Like, say I want like a brown hoodie, and Shopify has a brown hoodie, Walmart has a brown hoodie, Etsy has a brown hoodie. Like, who's going to get shown and who's get priority over that? So, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of questions too around like how we explore things. And so, I don't necessarily always want an assistant directing my choices in that sense, right? Like a travel agent assistant or whatever, ChatGPT, like I think it's great for getting research, but I don't really want it to go book a cruise for me without me reading all the reviews as well. And so I think there's just questions around like really how beneficial that assistant's going to be with the bigger things that we need versus like just the research searching consumption that we use for ChatGPT right now.
Yeah, but I would argue that we're already ruled by other people's algorithms anyways, like Google and social media feeds and stuff. And so this is just moving the algorithm to a different place.
Fair. And I guess you could say like, yeah, I mean, I guess for going to Google, if you say you like Nike, you want to go to Nike and you can just go to ChatGPT and say Nike shoes. And so
Yeah.
it'll pull in Nike shoes.
Yeah. But if you say best like running shoes, it's just like SEO or their algorithm or whatever. It's gonna be the same thing.
That's fair. But I'd argue you have a little bit more control over SEO as the site owner, right? Than you do for how you would show up in rankings in ChatGPT.
Well, I think it's just a different algorithm. It's a pre-training, it's a model training algorithm, and probably with their weights and biases added on top of it. And we don't know really what that is or how to game it, but we didn't know what Google's was either. People kind of figure it out slowly over time. But I still think it's like content on the internet that it's gonna scrape for its training data. That's what,
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair.
yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
I don't know what that means for shopping and everything in the future, but I do think that the like whatever you MCP clients or the whatever you want to call them, Claude and ChatGPT are going to be like a huge distribution channel now and going to take
agreed with that.
market share away from Google and search in general. And people are going to have to figure out how to deal with that and how to optimize it. And
Yeah.
paid is definitely going to be part of that for
Hmm.
sure. But yeah.
No, totally. I agree. Paid will be of that, and that's going to be part of the problem is like waiting out. I mean, it's probably going to be Google Ads 2.0, just probably worse in the long run.
Yeah.
Or it might be harder to decipher what's a paid like ad or promotion for somebody trying to get into that marketplace versus the real thing too. But like how are you doing? Because Comet and like Atlas from OpenAI came out, but it's also shown some pretty big security issues as well too. So like there is the prompt injection where an assistant can go see it, pull down a screenshot from a site that has malicious code in it, and then it can all of a sudden get full access to everything you need. And so like I think there's a whole lot of security implications that we're going to have to deal with, especially when dealing with purchases and stuff that I mean, I was using comment for a while, and then I saw that I was like, oh, done with that. Like, I don't want to have anything to
Yeah.
do with that right now, just because it doesn't seem like there's any stopping it at this point because an assistant can do anything. There's no real guardrails. You can't say, don't go to these 10 malicious sites that are known to have malicious things on it, right? It can just do
Yeah.
it if it thinks it needs to do it. And I think that's what scares me about like, or I'm wary of like whether it's really an assistant is really going to be what takes over because you've lost full control. I mean, think of all how bad it is with emails, with like scammers make emails look so perfect, like they're from Google or
Hmm.
whatever. Like, what's going to stop an assistant from going into your email and seeing an email from Google that's actually a scam email that looks perfect, and they click on that to reset your password or whatever because it's an assistant and you told it to reset your password. So, I mean, I think there's just that's where I'm not like sold on like it's going to replace everything, or an assistant is the right medium, that an LLM is going to change the world, or chat is the right medium. I think we'll get there. It's just chat was the first medium that we did that, and we're trying to push the boundaries on it. And I think we're seeing it with security. And I'm interested to see what that next medium will be that actually is more beneficial than a
Yeah,
chat.
I don't know how you can get more beneficial than natural language. I feel like that's the quickest way to get from your brain to the outside world and back in. I don't know that we're going to find a better medium for that. But you'll probably integrate some type of UX and button clicking and stuff along with that, and maybe
Hmm.
have it in some areas it'll be more subtle and things like that. But I just don't know that natural language interacting with an LLM, like what would be a better way? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either, but it just
Yeah.
feels weird, like, because for me, like putting in a credit card, I still want to do that like manually to make
Yeah,
sure it's right,
for sure.
or and clicking submit, right? I don't want to say go purchase this because maybe you have multiple credit cards and it doesn't need to go on one, and how does it know which one to do? Like, so I think there still has to be that non-natural language input that we have to figure out. And it just feels weird
Yeah.
to try to use natural language to tell an assistant to go click around and type in all this random stuff that we're normally used to doing. Um,
Yeah, but I do think it's early, and all
yeah,
technologies when they're early have problems, and I think they'll
agreed.
be solved. But I think if right now, if a human without a lot of special skills can do something, I think it will eventually be done by an AI agent. So like booking your travel, if you go to a travel agent that's really good at their job, they ask you some questions and then they get your approval for stuff, but they do most of the work. And I think that's also how it's going to be.
I mean, yeah, I think that's travel agent job is gone, right?
Yeah.
Because I did actually talk to a travel agent because we were looking at cruises for a 15-year anniversary or whatever. And I was like, can you give me this? And they just sent me back like three cruises that were just not even actually along the lines of what we were asking for. And so then I went to comment instead. I was like, okay, pull up all these cruises, give me into this and table of like broken down of departure dates, cost, and like destinations. And it does that, and it does a fantastic job. The really nice thing is like it gives you all the links so that I could then click in and go read reviews on the ships and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, I 100% agree. Like a travel agent job is, I think, gone.
Yeah.
Like we don't assistants can do that, but I still don't want this. I don't want to say, okay, to the assistant, okay, now go book the Princess Cruise going to here. Like, I still want control over that to make sure it was done perfectly or that it didn't just assume something, right? So, how do
Yeah.
we, like, what are the guardrails that the assistant knows exactly what needs to go in and at the right time,
Yeah,
right?
I actually don't think that's that hard of a problem to solve. It's not there yet, but I think it will get there like pretty easily. But whether you want to use it or not, that's a different question. I'm sure
Yeah,
it's going to be different for different generations too.
it
Like
is.
people who grew up with this, it's just going to be they do everything with that. And us, older dudes, maybe we're not
We'll
going to do
still
it
be
quite as
clicking around.
often.
We'll be the
Yeah.
old people, like our grandparents, who will like, get off that phone, and we'll just,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll be the
So
ones
we're
still wanting to
still
click around.
writing code by hand when like AI has far surpassed our abilities and yeah.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
so do you see If the LLMs keep getting better at writing code and they get to the point where they don't need as much input, um, do you think our jobs have a an expiration date on
Not for 15, 20 years, I wouldn't think.
them? Yeah. 15, 20 seems long, but I do think I think what we were doing a year ago is already gone. Like
Yeah,
writing all code by hand, it's already
yeah,
gone. But
it's gone.
if you adapt and I don't think that there's an expiration date on like creativity and ingenuity and communication and like innovation and all of these things that right now LLMs can't do,
Right.
which is
Again,
kind of becoming our job more than handwriting code.
yeah. And then it goes to like the creation of something new and novel, right? And or like the concept of like you have like a visionary and then people who are just implementing the vision. I'm trying to think of the term like architects or and then or like a lawyer and what are the people who work the clerks, law clerks, right? But the lawyers really like setting the strategy and stuff like that. And then the law clerks are going and like writing out the document. I think software will be similar. Like they're still going to have engineers who are setting the strategy, creating something new and novel, looking at things in a way that hasn't been looked at before, creating like an LLM can't go create all this new quantum computing stuff that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I think I'm not going to be smart enough probably to be that person creating all the new novel stuff, but I think there's always going to be the need for people pushing the boundaries, not LLMs pushing the boundaries, but LLMs will be doing the grunt work for everything, I
Yeah,
think for long.
I think it's eating LLMs are eating the lower levels.
Yeah.
And so the question is how many levels are they going to eat before it
Yeah.
stops?
hmm
And
But
will it get
then
up to our level, you
how
know?
do you get people to our level if it's eating all the lower levels?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a big problem, honestly. I kind of think we're going to go through this period where everybody's going to use LLMs for everything, and then they're going to realize, wait, actually, I forgot how to do interesting things, and so we're all just going to go back to
Yeah.
like yes, use an LLM, but like you have to maintain your skills and learn new things and don't forget how to be creative. Otherwise, the people who do that are going to surpass you. So that's
Right.
going to become the most desired skill set.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks for chatting again. Everything was really interesting. Do you have any thoughts before we go?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of unknowns, right? We're
Yeah.
all along for the ride for
Yeah.
this. So we got to all adapt.
It's like interesting and scary and exhausting and exciting all at the same time.
Right. Which is any big change
Yeah,
in life,
true.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
true. All right.
okay.
Thanks, Wes. Talk to you
Hey,
later.
man. See ya.